welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Our big focus tonight, the steep hike in fuel prices that's hurting all of us. For the last week, petrol and diesel prices have been gradually increased almost every day. But today, they've hit a century. It's the steepest price hike in 2 years. Petrol is now selling at over 101 rupees a litre in the capital, Delhi. The government says the hikes are necessary because international crude oil prices are high and the war in Ukraine has caused greater supply problems. Fuel prices are supposed to be revised on a daily basis, but state-owned oil companies froze the rates just ahead of assembly elections to 5 states, including in UP, and then decided to increase them once the elections were over. But before we talk about that, linked to this hike in fuel prices is what's happening in Ukraine. And the big development today is some positive movement in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine that took place in Turkey. Russia has said that it will drastically reduce or scale back its assault around the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and the northern city of Chernihiv. This is according to Russia's deputy defense minister, who was present in the talks. Ukraine has already accepted one of Russia's key demands, saying that it will adopt a neutral status in return for security guarantees. Neutral status means that Ukraine would not join any military alliances such as NATO, and it would not host any military bases. Russia's deputy defense minister said that the decision to radically reduce military activity in the two cities was taken in order to increase mutual trust and help lead to further negotiations to achieve what he called the ultimate goal of a signed agreement between the two sides. That's what the Russian news agency RIA Novosti is quoting him as saying. Well, Ksenia Kondrativa is an independent journalist. She's joining us now from St. Petersburg for some perspective on what this means. What does this mean on the ground? Is this actually a possible face saver for Russia in a war that has seen the Ukrainians put up quite a resistance?
Hi, thanks for having me. I wouldn't call it a face saver because there are many connotations to that. So what we have seen that this was probably the first peace talks that actually had some outcome. This was the 4th round. And probably the reason why it had some outcomes is that it was mediated, to put it mildly, by Turkey. I have to point out that the talks are not mediated in the proper sense of that word. Turkey just offered a ground for talks, just a platform. But still, it's important as a NATO member. So I think what Russia was trying to do was Russia was expecting NATO to pay attention to its demands at the very first place. I think NATO started listening a bit. So that is very important, and that's why
would you say that there is a climb down from both sides then, that there is this a genuine forward movement, or do we have to wait and see how this plays out on the ground?
You know, it's a very good question because you have quoted the statement of Minister of Defense Deputy who was present at the talks. But then right now what we are getting from the ground reports and some of the, statements by some of the commanders, we're getting it all over social media, that first of all, the military activities are continuing on other directions. It's only Kiev and Chernihiv, those two spots that were singled out. But the entire front line is not there, and very heavy fights are happening right now in Mariupol and other areas. And there is heavy shelling in Donetsk. So the military activities are going on. Let's not have any illusions on that front.
What you're saying is that we're still some way from an end to this conflict, even though a step forward may have been taken.
We are very far away, I think so, from the end, because the end will happen when two leaders will sit at the table and sign a peace agreement, but we don't know how much time the negotiators will take to actually prepare the agreement, because it's all about that.
Right. Well, Ms. Kondrativa, thank you very much for giving us that important perspective from St. Petersburg on this developing story, which, as I said right at the beginning, has a direct link with oil prices of all things back home here in India, if we look at Brent crude prices, we can actually see that they've already eased after news of this some positive movement in talks between Russia and Ukraine. If you see the graphic there, there was an increase at one point going up to $139 a barrel, and over the last week or so it's slowly and steadily come down, but last we checked it was at $106 a barrel. So that happened about $5 down just within an hour or so of this news breaking about Russia. Now, this war is one of the reasons why the government says that our fuel prices are so high, and one of the major problems when it comes to fuel prices in India is the high tax on petrol and diesel. There is excise duty that's collected by the central government, and then there's VAT that's collected by the states. So the ultimate price that we're paying for petrol and diesel is the basic price to the dealers along with the taxes. And if you look at the breakup, it's quite amazing. The retail price of petrol in Delhi, for example, was 95 rupees and 41 paise per litre on the 16th of March this year. And in this price, excise duty was 27.9 rupees per litre, VAT 15.5 rupees per litre. So the total share of taxes in that fuel bill was almost 46% of the price. So almost 46% of this price was just taxes alone. Now, this is an issue that's resonating very strongly in Parliament as well. The opposition has been up in arms about it. The government says it just doesn't have a choice, and that it didn't raise prices during the pandemic when many other countries did. But is there something the centre and states can do, and is this hike, this sharp hike, justified at all? Priyanka Chaturvedi, Rajya Sabha MP from the Shiv Sena, joining us tonight. Amar Patnaik, Rajya Sabha MP of the BJD. Mr. Satish Chandra Dubey, Rajya Sabha MP of the BJP, is with us. And Madan Sabnavis, the Chief Economist with the Bank of Baroda, joining us as well. Priyanka Chaturvedi, to you first. The government insists it doesn't have a choice. Look at what's happening in the rest of the world. Look at this war. Look at international oil prices. And they say we didn't hike prices so sharply during the pandemic when everyone else was doing so. Do they have their hands tied in this?
I do not agree with the government saying, I'm sorry, my voice is echoing.
Sorry, we'll just fix
My
that,
voice is
Priyanka.
echoing. It's very distracting.
I'll take that to Mr. Patnaik till we fix it. Mr. Patnaik.
No, see, in all fairness, the government has a point of view because the international prices have had stiffened, and I'm sure if the prices come down, then the retail prices in India should come down. But you have to also understand the fact that when the prices had gone up, the increase was not commensurate to the increase in the international prices. Similarly, maybe even when the prices did go down, the commensurate decrease was not there. But if you look at the average, then the increase is being done by the oil companies to plug the losses that they have already suffered when they didn't increase. So that's the government's point of view. But my view and our party's view is also the fact that the government has to do something more in terms of reduction of some of these customs and excise duties, at least as a measure when the economy is recovering, and particularly when the middle class and the people at the bottom of the pyramid are actually severely affected while recovering from the pandemic. So I think there are possibilities here. Now there are questions as to whether the state should be not doing it. But you see, the state's resource base and the capacity to tax different things is very, very limited. The states will ultimately have to implement their health, which is a state subject, education, agriculture. So the ball is squarely in the centre's court, and they have to devise ways and means of reduction in customs, additional customs duty, which is 18 rupees per litre, and similarly for special additional excise duty, which is also at a very high level. I don't think the government could actually sit tight on this.
All right, Priyanka Chaturvedi, just coming back to that original question. Also, I mean, you look at, for instance, fuel prices in Mumbai. Priyanka Chaturvedi, you're from Maharashtra. The duties and taxes, actually fuel is the most expensive. When you look at the metros, it's the most expensive in Mumbai. Can the Maharashtra government not take a step to reduce taxes there?
So, firstly, I'd just like to go back to the question that you had asked, whether the government is in a tight situation right now. I would not say that government is in that tight situation right now as is being portrayed and projected. We must remember that while of course I do keep in mind that Ukraine war and Russia attacking Ukraine has led to an oil crisis, but I also clearly remember that when the crisis broke out, the oil per barrel cost had gone up to as high as $180. Today, like I was listening to your report, it said it's at somewhere close to $106. So when it was at $185, the government continued to maintain the price stability, while it continues to also claim that the prices are deregulated. So they do not have any control over it. It's deregulated. Whatever the prices are, it would impact the people of this country. But we must also remember that was a time when elections were happening and we did not see any price rise. As soon as they have their chief ministers in place, as soon as they have the locks voted into the EVM machines, they have gone on to hike prices every single day. Now, as far as taxes are concerned, no state, including Maharashtra, has increased VAT on the cost of fuel. But it is the government of India since 2014 which has quietly been going on increasing taxes on petrol and diesel. And it has gone to as high as, has been changed as many times as 18 and above. So we need to keep in mind that the government of India quite has that leeway to be able to ensure that people are not badly impacted. Now coming back to this question about my state of Maharashtra, where we are charging whatever the price of fuel being much higher than any other state. Maharashtra is also battling with the center for its GST refunds, which still hasn't been given to it. We are still there is an overdue and arrears of over 22,000 crores that is due to the state of Maharashtra. That's point number one. In terms of support during the COVID period, when Maharashtra saw a larger impact of COVID cases, we did not see any financial support coming from the center. Okay. That's point number two. Okay. Point number three, I'll just like to leave it at that. We have to look at the volume of increase that the central government has imposed on the prices of fuel vis-a-vis the VAT that is being charged in the states.
You're right.
So there are very few options available to the state government.
Yeah, because excise duties have gone up exponentially much more than the state imposed VAT. Satish Dubey ji, you are a member of parliament of the BJP. It's hurting, Satish ji. लोगों को बहुत परेशानी हो रही है अभी इस वक्त जिस तरह से पेट्रोल और डीजल के दाम बढ़ाए गए हैं. जब अंतरराष्ट्रीय प्राइसेस कम हो जाते हैं तब हमारे दाम कम क्यों नहीं होते? बढ़ तो जाते हैं उनके साथ लेकिन कम नहीं होते, ऐसा क्यों?
ऐसा नहीं है कि दाम केवल बढ़ते हैं, कम भी होते हैं, कम भी किया जाता है, सरकार के द्वारा कम भी किया जाता है. और अंतरराष्ट्रीय मार्केट में तेल तो अपने यहाँ होता नहीं है. अंतरराष्ट्रीय मार्केट में जब तेल का दाम बढ़ेगा तो स्वाभाविक बात है कि यहाँ तेल का दाम बढ़ेगा. उसमें भी आप आज का जो हालात है आप देख रहे हैं कि रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच जो जंग चल रहा है इसका भी एक कहीं ना कहीं इम्पैक्ट है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हम लोग केवल दाम ही बढ़ाते हैं. समय समय से अगर घटता है अंतरराष्ट्रीय मार्केट में दाम तो हम लोग कम भी करते हैं, सरकार कम भी करती है. और उसी के साथ अंतरराष्ट्रीय मार्केट के हिसाब से ही दाम का प्राइस का बढ़ता और घटता रहता है. घटता
तो बहुत कम है दुबे जी, घटता तो बहुत कम है. अभी घटा है, जैसे $106 हो गया है पर बैरल, और उससे पहले तो 110, 112, 120 तक था, तब हमारे बढ़ाए गए. तो क्या कम हो जाएंगे कल सुबह?
अब इस पे तो सरकार डिसीजन लेगी ही लेगी. निश्चित रूप से अगर अंतरराष्ट्रीय मार्केट में तेल का दाम कम हुआ है तो यहाँ भी कम होना चाहिए, होगा भी.
अच्छा, if that happens, I will certainly call you and celebrate. Madan Sabdavis, what is the real picture here? I mean, how much of a bind is the government actually in when it comes to hiking fuel prices? Is this a sort of a no option scenario, or is the fact that we've held back on any revision during elections also hurting us today?
I think the problem goes back towards the pre-election time when we did not really revise the prices, and therefore today we are compelled to increase the prices almost on a daily basis. Now we should remember there are four parties to it. We have the center, we have the states, we have the OMCs, and then we have the consumer. I think the burden will have to be shared across all the four constituencies. The government needs to lower the excise duties, the center. If you look at the states automatically benefit when the basic price of crude oil goes up because it's an ad valorem tax. So if I have a tax of 25% or 30%, as the base price increases, there's automatically a revenue being earned. We had the OMCs which have made a lot of profits earlier when the price was low. I mean, the crude oil price was low and the consumer continued paying almost a similar price. And then there's the consumer. The important thing is that if we do not check inflation, it not only increases the price of driving a vehicle, but it also feeds into other commodities because it becomes generalized inflation as freight charges go up, and we'll have a second round of core inflation going up. So I think that is the major concern. It will come in the way of credit policy because the RBI cannot sit back and say inflation is going to be 4.5%. We don't have to do anything on interest rates. So that's the reason why I think both the center as well as the states will have to take some initiative and probably give up a little bit in terms of the revenue for the larger good.
That's important. Dubey ji, let me come back to you on that. क्या आप कहते हैं कि जब अंतर्राष्ट्रीय प्राइसेस कम हो जाएंगे, निश्चित रूप से हमारे दाम भी कम होने चाहिए और हो भी सकता है, लेकिन ये जो इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं मदन सबनविस वो कह रहे हैं कि सेंटर को भी एक्साइज ड्यूटी जो है, जो टैक्स है, उसको भी कम करना पड़ेगा, स्टेट्स को भी अपनी तरफ से और सेंटर को भी अपनी तरफ से. क्या उसमें कुछ गुंजाइश है? क्या आप अपील करेंगे सरकार से कि उन्हें इस बारे में सोचना चाहिए? क्या करना है, सरकार पैनी निगाह रखी हुई है. जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मार्केट में तेल का दाम घटेगा, उस पे स्टेट और केंद्र बैठ के अपनी चर्चा करके उसको मार्केट के हिसाब से कम बेच तो करता ही है, करता है. ऐसा थोड़ा है कि नहीं करता है, करेगा भी. लेकिन अब अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मार्केट में जैसे जैसे तेल का दाम बढ़ता है उसी ढंग से तेल का दाम यहाँ भी बढ़ता है और घट रहा है तो घटेगा भी, यहाँ भी घटेगा. और आप फिर से मैं दोहरा रहा हूँ कि जो आज के डेट में सुझाव देंगे कि टैक्स कम होना चाहिए.
मैं बात करूंगा, मैं अपनी बात को रखूंगा.
ठीक है, आप कह रहे हैं आप बात करेंगे क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है. लेकिन दुबे जी ये भी है, ये बात भी है कि आप मानते हैं कि चुनाव में जिस तरह से कोई रिवीजन हुआ ही नहीं दामों में क्योंकि चुनाव चल रहे थे, क्या ये गलत बात नहीं है?
देखिए, ये तो विपक्ष का आरोप है. आप जो भी अच्छा काम करेंगे तब भी विपक्ष आपको घेरता है और जब आप गलत करेंगे तभी तो घेरना तय है. लेकिन हमारी सरकार गलत नहीं करती है. निश्चित रूप से विपक्ष हारी हुई है 4 स्टेट में, जिसका नतीजा है कि विपक्ष के पास कोई मुद्दा नहीं है, केवल घेरना ही घेरना उसका मकसद बना है. तो अपना काम कर रहा है विपक्ष, तो अपना काम कर रहा है. हम सत्ताधारी लोग हैं, अपना जनता की सेवा करना है, सेवा भाव से हम काम करते हैं.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, do you want to rebut that?
I do not know what can I say to someone who thinks that winning elections is the only way of proving that the country happens to be with them and the country is not suffering the damage through the policies that has been unleashed on the nation. Now all I'd like to say here is, I do not remember since 2014 how many times the cost of fuel has come down. So let's say even if the cost of fuel has come down, the taxes have considerably increased from where it began from 2014. I have some data with me as compared to 2014 June, where the tax component was 24.6 rupees per litre. We now have 59.5 rupees per litre. And it has only definitely increased. This is, I'm quoting from July 2021 data. So what I just want to say is, only when you give the consumer the relief from taxes and central government taxes will we see some kind of semblance coming as far as fuel prices are concerned. But as of now, the way he has given, defended the position of the central government, I do not see that happening.
Madan Sabnawis, just a quick last comment. I think the problem also continues to be that, our oil companies are not free from government control, are they? Which is why, they're not raising prices when elections are there. You suddenly then get like a massive hike after 137 days, as happened just now after the assembly polls. And is there any solution to that in sight? I guess not.
No, you're right. I think the oil marketing companies do belong to the government, and there was talk that one of the companies would be disinvested fully. I think that's only when we'll get to know whether they would be in a position to actually change the rates as and when they want to. But my sense is they probably won't, because it works as an oligopoly anyway. We pay the same rates at any of the petrol stations. So even if one of them is privatized, they will continue following what the other three are doing.
But do you agree with both the opposition leaders on this panel today that the primary responsibility to cut taxes lies with the centre because excise duties have been exponentially higher? Is there scope for states to reduce VAT?
No, absolutely. I think the states can also reduce it. As I told you, since they have an ad valorem rate, today they are actually gaining in case the basic price of petrol, the basic price of petrol in terms of the actual cost. plus the excise duty and the dealer commission. On that, we are having a VAT being applied. So they are benefiting from it. So they can definitely reduce it marginally.
Mr. Patnaik, a quick word on that. Is there something, any gunjaish in Orissa to do the same?
No, you see, as I said, Orissa did decrease once the center decreased. Orissa did decrease the VAT. But you see, the states have very limited scope to actually decrease the VAT because they have to meet other social obligations, social sector obligations, which are state subjects. It is definitely center's responsibility, but I'll go a step further and I'll agree with you, Nidhi, to suggest that if the prices have really been deregulated and let the country and the people actually know the realities instead of keeping it suspended for certain periods of time for various purposes and then increasing it at one go. You see, the oil companies lost about 17,000 crores during these 4 months and they have to make it up probably by increasing it on a daily basis as it's happening. And now I think the country must come to realize the deregulation has taken place since 2014, which are now 8 years. We have to get the country prepared to face this kind of a thing. Otherwise, we have these situations where artificially things are kept at control and artificially again it has to increase even when the international prices are decreasing. I think we have to change that situation.
All right. Well, we've hit a century today, as I said right at the beginning, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any relief anytime soon. Mr. Sabnavis, I have 30 seconds. Please go ahead.
I just want to give a very easy example. Let's assume the cost is 100. On that, I put 20% VAT, so the price is 120. Now 100 goes to 110. I continue having a 20% rate. The price goes to 122. So there's a 2 rupees increase. That is where the states could actually cut down so that they retain their 20 rupees and not get this additional 2 rupees.
All right. On that note, have to end it there. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us on that important story. Thanks very much.